Hi Sahabat Kompas TV, today is a great day to talk about maritime and its underwater cultural heritage. That's why I'm here today at yet America event to talk more about it with the expert marine archaeologist Dr. Jennifer McKinnon. Hai sahabat Kompas TV, so here I am, Salsabila Mutia, a digital journalist for Kompas TV. I am beyond honored to be here today with Dr. Jennifer McKinnon. Good afternoon, Dr. Jennifer. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for taking your time to be here with us today. So, Dr. Jennifer McKinnon is a renowned U.S. historian and maritime archaeologist whose work in preserving underwater cultural heritage has made a significant impact. Currently, she is collaborating with the Indonesian government on a pivotal project to establish a maritime conservation zone for the USS Houston, a ship that sank in Indonesia during the World War II. So, Dr. Jennifer, can you tell us a bit about your background and what led you here to promote the preservation of underwater cultural heritage?
Sure. So I'm a maritime archaeologist who's been working on World War II sites for about 20 years now. All around the world. I've worked in the Pacific and in Europe and the Australian waters. And so I have focused a lot on Japanese and US shipwrecks and aircraft. And so that experience, I think, is what brings me here today to help sort of continue the conversations about protecting the USS Houston and just making sure that we're continuing to raise awareness about the need to protect it and develop the site possibly into a protected maritime conservation zone.
Okay, so what specific role are you playing in the efforts to preserve underwater cultural heritage in Indonesia?
So I think the collaboration between maritime archaeologists who are colleagues of mine and I've known for 15 years and kind of just working through our networks to make sure that I come from an academic background, but there are folks that I know who are working in ministries here and also doing PhDs in Australia at a university that I worked at and taught at before. And so kind of pulling together those folks to continue to talk about the need for preserving the site so that it isn't, impacted by looting in the future.
Yeah, because I think this topic is interesting because from what I read, Indonesia is home to hundreds of shipwrecks from World War II. And if I'm not mistaken, UNESCO reported that around 5,000 ancient ships were sunk in Southeast Asia, and 10% of them are estimated to be in Indonesian waters.
Yeah.
And you, on the other hand, have led a number of World War II conflict heritage projects, right? So could you share more about this? Like, what's actually going on under the sea because of this conflict?
Yeah, so there's so much more to explore. We only have a certain amount of sites that have been identified. And so you can't protect or manage sites unless you know where they're at. So you have to know first what you have. And so generally, like our first step as archaeologists are to do surveys to look for sites, right? And then, understand the sites, identify them, and try and connect them to a battle or an engagement is important. And then the next steps are, how do we protect those sites and thinking about how they'll be there for future generations, because what we have today is all we'll have of World War II sites. They're not, they're a non-renewable resource. We're not making more World War II sites. So it's important that we take care of the ones that we have.
Okay, so given your collaboration with the Indonesian National Innovation Research Agency and the Indonesian Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, what aspects does this partnership encompass?
So we've just been having a lot of meetings about, where agreements are in terms of the agreements between the U.S. and Indonesia and what the next steps are going to be. There's not only potential for, government to government partnership, but there's also a network of maritime archaeologists in Indonesia, as well as folks like me who are interested in the research from an academic perspective that can partner and potentially look for funding sources to find more sites, promote the sites, and promote preservation.
Okay. And what challenges do you anticipate in managing underwater cultural heritage here in Indonesia?
So the main thing is these sites are out of sight. You know, they're underwater. So it's really hard to imagine a site or protect it when you can't see it. And so setting up a management plan that allows for researchers to go down and research the sites and monitor them is really key. Other, threats are both natural and cultural, which can include everything from huge storms and tsunamis and volcanoes and earthquakes to, small scale looting of the sites as well as large scale looting of the sites. Impact from fishing also happens as well. There's going to be nets and lines that are all over sites. So there's a range of sort of impacts that we need to take into consideration when we're thinking about how we protect the site into the future.
Considering the looting that you mentioned earlier, so the next question will be, how's your plan to engage the local community if they're the one that doing the looting?
Right.
Yeah.
So the wonderful thing about the Indonesian government is that they are already engaging the local communities, right?
Okay.
So we saw from and we've seen from Nia's presentations, but also her research, that she's working with local fishing communities to raise awareness and do education programs for school children, as well as people who are actively out on the sites. And that is the best case scenario. That's best practices in management, is education.
Yeah, true.
Because education leads to understanding, which leads to stewardship. And so that process has to happen in order for true and effective management to take place.
Okay, so the last question will be, what long-term impact do you hope this project will have on the preservation of underwater heritage, especially in Indonesia?
So my long-term hope, I'll give you a short and a long-term. My short-term is actually that the site will be listed or gazetted as a protected area. And my long-term hope is that a solid management plan that includes both the U.S. and Indonesia is put in place to protect the site over the length of its history and for generations to come.
Okay, wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Jennifer McKinnon, for sharing all your valuable insights with us today. It's really exciting to see how this initiative will shape the future of underwater heritage preservation, especially that is here in Indonesia. We sincerely hope that all parties involved in this amazing project can come together to realize this aspiration. Thank you so much, Dr. Jennifer.
Thank you.
So, sahabat KompasTV, thank you for watching us today. We hope that today's interview has been both enlightening and informative. We look forward to seeing you at our next event. Bye-bye.